So this is an introduction to Microsoft Visio 2013, and Visio is a software that is used to create organization charts. You can create flow charts, you can create network diagrams, you can create office layouts. So there's a lot of design elements. Some of these things you can do it in Word. However, in Visio, it just makes it very easy to do that. Now, when you come to Visio, you can actually open the file as a blank drawing or as one of these templates, and I'll talk about why it will be good to go through these. I'll go to blank. So when I double click on the blank, and now I need to put some symbols here, so I have to look for the stencils on the left hand side, and I go to more shapes. And then if I was doing a flow chart, then I'll go to flow chart, and then I can add the basic flow chart shapes. And then the shapes are added here. Now I can start pulling them in here and bringing them here. However, it's better to go through the templates because then the shapes will be automatically added. So I'll just close this and I'll go back to File, New, and if I click on this basic flowchart, now you'll find that they've already given me some of the flowchart drawings. So they've got the basic cross-functional shapes. So they've added few of them. So if I go back and choose New, and say if I choose this floor plan, and I can choose whether I want US or metric units, which is the UK style. So now it will give me the templates, and now I've got all the buttons, the important utensils that I can use to make a floor plan. So that's why using that will be easy and good. So in this video, I just want to use the example of a flowchart to introduce you to the concept of Visio and of some of the important buttons. And also at the end, we'll look at a quick way to make organization chart, which you can make in Excel and Word. Up here, they just got some more functionality built into it. So this is what Visio looks like. You have the usual look of what they've started having in 2007 onwards with ribbons. So these are the tabs, and they are collectively known as the ribbon system. And if you ever double click on any of the tabs, you'll find that the ribbons will go into hiding. And if you wanted to see it all the time, just make sure you double click it because you would like to see your ribbons all the time. And you can customize things, like this quick access toolbar can be customized by clicking on the drop down button, adding any of the buttons you want from here. You can also go to more commands, and now from the popular commands you can add any to your list, or you can go to any of the tabs. So I can go to, say, the design tab, and I can find the buttons from the design tab to my list, or you can look at the all commands. Now while I'm in this place, I can also go to customize ribbon, because from here I can actually create my own tabs. So I can create a new tab so that I can put all the important buttons that I want in that tab. So just to show you the example, like up here I've got this insert. So instead of just these, I can create my own tab and put different buttons from different tabs in one place. So I'll just do that quickly, and I can get it to it from your file and then options, or from the drop down button here to more commands, and then click on customize ribbon. And if I want to create a new tab, I can click on the word new tab, and then you see it creates one here. I can click it and rename it, and say I wanted to call it a mirror, and I click OK. And underneath it there is a group. I can rename the group, and I can call it a group. Now to this, I can start adding the buttons. So whatever buttons I wanted, the commands that I use a lot, I can start adding it. And I can group them in a certain way. I can even click here and look at main tabs so that I can go to, say, the design tab, and I can add the page setup to this group. I can add themes to that group. And I can even add a new group in that section, and I can rename it, and I can call it B group. And then I can add something else to that if I wanted to. And I can click OK. Now you'll find that I have that tab called Amir, and these are some of the buttons I've added. So it's a nice little way to customize it to make your commands all in one place. So I'll click here, go back to more commands, and customize ribbon, and I can even say reset, or I can remove the check mark if I don't want to see it. And you can also choose to export it so that you can use it in another computer, or you can import it if you've already created in a different computer, and I can just reset it. Now this will reset not just your tabs, it will also reset your quick access. So it does it all. And on the right hand side bottom, you've got the zoom option, the plus sign, and there is this button here, which I click it, it will just fit to screen. There is also a button here on the bottom, which is for presentation mode. If I click it, it goes in a full screen mode, and I can hit the escape key to stop it. So I can actually show my Visio in a full screen mode, and I can put buttons on it for people to click next to go to the next screen. So all of those things can be added here. And the stencils which I talked about, so whenever they add these stencils, I can add more by going to the flow charts and adding whichever stencils I want. I can add them in there. And under view, you'll see a lot of those options like viewing it in, zooming it, fit. I can also add the grid because I would like to see the grid, because sometimes you might find that it's easier to arrange things when you see the grid option. Under view, there is also this option called task pane, so you can add the shape and data. So you get a window here, which I'll talk about what it means. And you can also add pen and zoom options, so I can actually zoom into certain parts of my design very easily, and I can choose the options. I can always hit the X to close it, and I can go back to this button to fit, or I can use fit to window. So I'll come back to home. I'm just going to increase the zoom just a little, and I'll scroll up. You can also use the zoom by using a shortcut. I believe it's the control key on the keyboard, and you can use the wheel on the mouse. Okay. So it's very handy as a shortcut. So let's just do some basic design elements. So say I wanted to add a flow chart where I wanted to say this is the start point, this is next kind of thing. So if I take the start and end options, so this is like my starting point, I can put it up here in the middle. And if I wanted, I just start typing over it. And if you wanted to add more, you can hit enter, and another line can go there. And that's it. I can click outside, and I've started my first thing in there. Now when I click on it, you can rotate it, you can resize it if you needed to. From the corners, always better, but you can go any way. And when I point to it, you see this arrows coming up. So when I point to that, I can choose to add, this button is for a process. So you see they have this box, which is a process. This symbol stands for a decision, and this symbol stands for a sub-process, and then this is the start and end. So when I go to the corner, I get that. So I can add one on any of this direction, any of these buttons on any side I want it. So you don't have to drag it. And when I do that, it will automatically put the link between them, the connection that's going there. When I drag it from here, the connections won't be made. So I'll just hit undo. So it's a good way of getting things done really fast. Now I can change the shapes up here. So you see under home, I can change the shape to whatever I like to be. If you wanted it to be different, it's better to stick with the default, but it's there. And you can always right click, and you should see a whole bunch of options here. Well, what can you do? You can edit the text. You can add comments on it. You can format the shape. And you can also go to properties, and when I click on properties, you see this window comes up. So this is what is known as the shape data. So all of these boxes, they can actually store data. So I can put like a process number in it, or I can put a function, or I can put a start date in there. So because these boxes are actual something intelligent, so because they can hold information in it. So it's very useful when you're doing certain type of things. You can put those information in there. Now, along with these boxes, you can use these tools up here in the home. You see, I can click on the drop down and I can choose to create rectangle or an ellipse or a line. So if I want, I can choose a rectangle and I can draw it in here. The only difference is this box are not intelligent, like they cannot hold data. So if I right click on it, you see I don't have properties. The way when I right click here, I get properties. So that's the difference. You can still use them, but you just won't be able to hold the data on it. Okay, so I'll just click here, click on it, and I can hit delete. And when I click here also, I can change the shapes and the styles and the colors to whatever I want it to be. So all the things you've learned in Word and Excel, a lot of those things start to become through here. You can apply those things. So what I'll do is now, this is my starting process and I wanted to add a process, so I can drag it up here. And I can again put things in there. Now if I wanted to put like a sub process, I can do that, maybe on the side. I can take a decision and I can put the decision here. Then I can have a process if I wanted, and then I can put a start and end. So you see, when I started adding these from here, the lines are not created. But when I use that symbols from here, they'll be created automatically. You see the lines, they start to show up. So it's up to you. Maybe this way you might find it better, but I'm going to show you the other ways too. So now once I've had my design in play, I can click the connector button. Now when I point here, you see these are live. So I click it and I can drag it. So it will put the arrow in that direction. If I go the other way, the arrow will be going the other way. Then I can click here and I can drop it in there. And then from here, I can create a link here. And then, so I'm just adding the links. And I can click on the pointer again when I want to move it. And even if I move this, the line will move because it is smart. It is connected. It is doing it nicely. Now there are some few buttons here that I want to just talk about. So if I take this text, I can drag it and then I can put a text in there, and you can always highlight it and you can change the fonts and everything for it. Click on the pointer again. I can click it and delete it. Now the words in here where I typed start process, if I wanted to move it up or down, just the words, so then I can use this button here, the text block. So I click it. Now when I see that symbol, I can move. It will move only the words, so it's not going to move the actual box. So that's the handy feature if you wanted to move the words above it. And then you can change the font so that it's a little nice, it's readable. Okay. So that's that button, and it says text block. Move, resize, or rotate this text within a shape. So I can also use it to rotate just the text or the shapes. I can make it big or small depending on what I want to do. I can click on the pointer again. Now in the insert, I have options to insert pictures from your computer, online pictures. So if you wanted to find something, so if I click it, you see I can find the pictures from Clipart, Office, online. I can do a search for it. I can even browse to my OneDrive. This is the SkyDrive OneDrive feature of Hotmail and Microsoft, where I can store my pictures online. So you can do that and you can add it here. You can add charts in here. You can insert CAD drawing like from AutoCAD. You can create containers like boxes. So I can click on any one of them. I can even change them to a certain container styles if I wanted it. I can add callouts like these type of texts and things. So see, if as I point to it, they start to show up on the screen. And connector, which is also there in the home page. I'll talk about hyperlink in a few minutes. So these are good in the insert. I can add this. I can also add a new page, a blank page or a duplicate page that is exact same copy of this page on a new page. Or on the bottom, I've got this page 1. I can click on the plus sign to add a page 2. So that's page 1, page 2. I can right click on it and I can rename it to say flowchart. So you can label them properly. So that is all under insert. You can do that. Now in the design, I get options to, as the word says, design. So I can click it and the design is added. I can also choose some variations of that design, and there is more when you click on the drop down button. I can go to color, and as I point to, they start changing, so I can choose which one would I like. And also from here you can have different effects, the shading kind of things that can be having an effect on it. And you can also affect the connections. So there are the connections, you can choose whether you want it certain shapes, sizes, or dots or dashes. So there's a lot of different things you can change from here in the design. And the design itself has lots of design elements that you can choose from. You can change the orientation, portrait, landscape. You can change the size. If you are printing on a different size paper, you can choose that. You can also add a background. So there are lots of different styles up here. They have it all available that you can choose. So if I want it, I can choose this. Now when I choose it, look on the bottom with the pages that it will add a background page. So if I click it, so you see this page background will change because I am on it. Okay. And if you look on the bottom, it's added one called V background 1. And so this is just the background, and my flowchart has this. My page 2 does not have that background because I haven't told it about it. I could choose to add a different background to this. And if you do that, that will mean on the bottom you'll have two different backgrounds, because this V background is like the master slide. So anything I add here will show up on all the pages that are using this as a background. This is a very good handy feature. Now if I wanted to make page 2 the same as this background, I right click on it, go to page setup, and then I tell it for the background, I want the background to be V background 1. And I click OK. Now it's got that background. Okay. So this is my flowchart. So that's a very handy feature to set your backgrounds up, and you can customize it very easily. Next to background, there is an option called borders and titles. So if I wanted to put a title on the top, I can choose one of these designs. So if I wanted, I can choose this one. And I think when I scroll up, I'm just going to reduce the zoom. So there is my title. It has been added. Now what it did is, because I added the title on my flowchart, it added another background page because it needs to be on the background page, and then here I'll be able to change the title. So I would rather not do that. I'm just going to hit undo. Okay, so I'm back to my flowchart. Now if I was going to add the border and title in this way, I would rather go to the background page and I'll add the border title here. And then I can double click here and I can put my page title. We'll go there, because this way when I put it in the background, all the pages will have it automatically. So when I go to flowchart, it will have that there on the top, and also the page 2 will have it on the top. So this will save you time rather than doing it on individual pages. Now if you wanted it something different, you could do that, but that will mean that it will keep on adding new background pages on the bottom so that you can go to that and make the changes. So I think this will be better to do the changes on the background. They also have this option here called relayout. So if I wanted to, I'm just going to change this to full width. As I point to it, they may change. So you see now the thing is changing, the look, the layout. So you can show it, you can re-layout it very quickly by choosing it. I'm just going to change the coloring system so that you can see things better. Okay. So when I go to re-layout, you'll see that they are starting to change as I'm pointing to it. So you can choose which way will look better. In this case, the default look is much better, so I can leave it as it is. I can choose the connectors if I wanted them to be straight lines or curved lines. So you see now they've curved. I can choose them as right angles or straight lines. So it's up to you. How would you like to show your connectors? So that's all is under design options. Now I want to talk about what is called inserting hyperlinks or linking some buttons to go to a different page. So if you look on the left hand side in the basic flowchart shapes, I have this option here called off page reference. So if I drag it here, it will ask me, oh, do you want to connect this to a brand new page so I can like create a new page completely, or I can say create it to an existing page. So if I choose, I can then choose one from here. So I'll say go to page 2, and it says it's going to insert a hyperlink. And you can also keep the shapes synchronized. It means it will put this symbol also on the page 2. So if you choose that, that means both the pages will be synchronized. And if I click OK, you see now it takes me to page 2 and it's put that same symbol. When I double click it, it will bring me to the page 1. And if I double click here, it will take me to page 2. So say if I go to the home and I change the shape of this guy to say this one. Now let's see page 2, that's changed to. So you can see that all the way to the top. So this is a good way of doing it. Now if I wanted to insert, so I'm just going to increase the zoom a little. Say I wanted to take this, and this was like a process, and I wanted this to be connected to page 2 because I wanted to take this process and describe it in more details. So I click on it and I go to insert hyperlink, and I can browse here and I can tell it to browse to an internet address or a local file, or I can browse to a page. So I can say browse to page 2, and I can even choose the default zoom. I click OK and I click OK. Now when I point to it, you see it shows me that it says if you hit control and click it, so if I hold control and click it, it will take me to page 2. So this is another way of inserting hyperlink, and I can always right click on it, go to edit hyperlink, and I can delete the hyperlink. So very good way, because when your flowcharts or any of your designs starts to get big, you can actually take sections of your charts and then you can expand it in different places so that this flowchart is pretty straightforward. It doesn't get too complicated. We haven't saved our file. It's always a good thing to do right from the start, but let's do it now. So I can click on the save button here, or file and then save. And I can choose to save it on my SkyDrive or OneDrive, what it's called, so that it's on the cloud, and then I can share it with other people. And later on, maybe in one of the videos, I'll talk about the sharing option. So I'll just save it on computer, and I'll save it to my Visio folder, and I'll call it my flowchart. I click save, and it is saved. Now when I go to file, up here in the corner they have the properties, so you can click on the properties, advanced properties, and then here you can give it a title, the subject, author, manager, company name, and any other information you wanted. You can add it here, or you can fill it up right here, because a lot of this information can be added to your document when you need it. So let me show you how to do that. So say up here I'm in insert and I add a text box from here, which you can do it from here, or from home you can add the text box. It's up to you. But up here you get the option whether you want a horizontal or vertical. So I'll choose horizontal and say I'll put it here. Now in here, because I have a box, now the field option is highlighted. If you didn't have the box, the field won't be available. I click it and I can say from the document info, let's see if I can add company name, and I click OK, and it's added. I can highlight it, increase the font size, and change the color if I wanted it. So it's added. Now if I did this on the background, it will be better, so that all the pages will automatically have this. So you can insert objects and the field, sorry, not the object, field, and they have lots of things. You can add dates and times, page info, like how many pages and things, and a lot of other things. Next, I'll talk about in the data tab, they have this button called data graphics. So that is where the association of the the data information is coming up. So if I right click here and I go to properties and say in the cost I put 1000, okay, and I'll just close this. Now if I go to this data graphics and I click on create new data graphic, I already clicked on that box, and I can click a new item, and then I can say cost displayed as, say I wanted to display it as a text, and it's asking me, so what style do you want? Do you want it in this type of a box or this type of a box or a circle? I'll say let's put it like this, and I'll change the default position, and I'll say to maybe put it on the bottom. Let's see, in the center maybe, and maybe on the bottom. And I'll click OK, and I'll click OK. Say yes to it, and you see now it's put the cost and then in the box itself. So this is where, and then once I have these things, and I can create other in the same create new, I can create new items, and then I can say that if the cost is such and such, put a certain color or a check mark or a boxes. So in the next few videos I'll talk about it. I just want to tell you a little bit about it just in case you came across this as an exam question. So just click on a box, and then you can add any graphics. If you already add one, you can already see it. So if I have already created an earlier one, I click it, so it puts the cost 0. But if I right click and I go to properties and I put the cost 2000, now that cost will show up there in the bottom. There it is, and there's the 1000. Now I can create other conditions to talk about it, or if I make any changes, the both will be affected. So if I go back here and I click on edit, and I try to edit this one, and I say, you know what, I don't want it the default position, or I'll edit the item and I'll say don't put it in the center. Let's see, you want to put it on at the edge, and I click OK, and you see the cost is there. It's just going on the side, so it's just going outside. So I'll go back, edit it, edit this item, and I'll tell it to come back to the center, horizontal center and vertical on the bottom, and there it is. And you can keep on adding other types of data to it, saying that if you see certain symbols, put a check marks and boxes and things. So there's a lot of stuff that can be done, and I'll just show you quickly how that options works to add more. So if I click on this box, then I go back to data graphics and then edit. So I already have one, so I can click on new item, and I can say again I'm dealing with cost, and I want to display some icons. So I want to quickly see certain icons based on certain conditions. So if I say I want it this one, and I say if the cost is less than 1100, then put that check mark. If the cost is greater than, say, 1800, then put a red on it. So if I click OK, and you can again choose the positions, where would you like it, and I click OK. Now you see the check mark shows up there, and I don't know why that didn't come up. That should have come up here too. Let's see, what have I done? Edit. Oh, I should say less than 1100. So now you see the check mark shows up here and the X shows up here because this is greater than 1800. So these data points can be useful to make sense out of your data, and really quickly you can get people to see what's going on. I'll talk about a few minor things, and we'll talk about the creating an organization chart, and that would be it. So if I go to home, there is this button here called aligning. So you can use it to auto align whenever you needed it. Some options are not available right now. And the position. So this is good because I can use the spacing options, and by default it's leaving 0.5 inches in terms of spacing, so I can increase 1 inch. So it's going to do it together, horizontal and vertical, but I can remove it so that I can control. And if I click OK, you see the distance has been increased between all of them. And if I go back to spacing and I reduce it to 0.5, Now it will be coming back. So it's a very good way to quickly set things up. Printing options, I can go to File and then I can click on Print, and I can choose to print the whole thing or just the current page. I can choose landscape or portrait right from here. I can choose to do color or just black and white. I can also set up the page setup from here, so I can choose again what page size it is, whether I want to increase it by a certain percentage so that it becomes a little bigger, or if my information was in 2 pages, I can make it fit in 1 page, and I can also print the grid lines. And now if I click OK, so I can see my grid lines. There's also the option for headers and footer. So I can choose to have something on the left hand side, so my header is right now occupied with the page title and things, but I can put something in the footer. So on the left hand side I can even use this drop down button and I can say the current time. In the center I can put a word, so I can put my name, and on the right hand side I already have the page number. If I click OK, now on the bottom it has added that. So I'm just going to save this, and I'll click on File and I'll click on Close. Click the Close button, and now I'm going to go back to File and I want to start the org chart. So I'm looking for the organization chart. There it is. I click it. Again, I can tell it whether it's the metric, the UK system, or US. I click Create, and it will start a wizard. So if you want it, what this wizard does is it will help you to start an Excel file in which you can enter all the information, and then it will use it to create your organization chart. So if I click I want to enter using the wizard, it will ask me that. If I have already created an Excel, I can use the first option. So I'll show you the second one right now, and I'll show you the other one quickly too. So I'll click Next, and now it's asking me, do you want an Excel file or would you like a text file? Excel will be easier, and I can give it a name. And you can even browse and tell it where to save it. By default it will save it in your Documents folder. I click Next, and you see it's created it, and it will soon open an Excel file. And in there you'll see they have the option for name, reports to, title, department, telephone number. So you can actually start filling up all the information here, whatever their position is. So if I added another one, and then so I can now save this and I can close it, and I click Next. Oh, there was a question here. Don't include pictures. If you had it and you had created pictures and the pictures were given certain names, you can actually point to that folder and you can say match it by name, so that it will automatically figure it out, but we don't have it. I click Next, and I'll say to set it up by top executive, and I can click Finish. And you'll find that it actually creates a chart. So if I'm just going to increase the zoom, okay, and there it is. And you can change it to different designs. I think I'll do another video where I'll talk a little bit more about it. Now, any position, if I thought that this position, she should be maybe linked in a different way, I can click on it and I can change the position type. And right now it's the position, and if I want I can make it an assistant. So I click OK, and now this position will be turned into an assistant position. So you can, from the org chart, you can change the the look of it. There are different ways you can change the look of it. You can also do the relayout, so you can change the way the layout looks. So a lot of options that you can set up. I can even click on something, I can change their position, because sometimes you find when you load it, it might show up as a position or a manager. So you see, so you might want to change it, and then if I do relayout, and you see now this position is showing up as in a different way. But if I click it and I change the position type to assistant, and now it doesn't change, but because you have to hit the relayout, now we see it shows up in a way that this person is an assistant to them and these people are set up in a different way. You can affect the spacing and everything as you go on. So that's a really good way to get things going, and you can always add the shapes from the left hand side. So if I wanted to add a assistant to this guy, this person Jane, I just take the assistant notch and I drop it on it, and you see it's added it. If I wanted to add an assistant to John, I just add it on it. If I wanted to add an assistant to Mary, I can just click on, point to it, and just right there, and I can hit the relayout, and it will nicely lay it out. Okay. So I'm just going to do a new one, showing you the other way where if you already had it in Excel. So if I go to New, and I'll click on Org Chart, and I'll click Create, and this time I'll say I've have that information in a file, so I'll choose that information instead. So I click on it and I click Next. If you were using a Microsoft Exchange server, a lot of time your organization might already have that information, so you can actually pull it from there. The third one is for an Access database. You can pull it from there. The second one is for an Excel file. So I click Next. Now I'll browse, and I think I've saved it in a folder called Visio Organization List, and I'll click Next. And I'll say the name. I can say, because I've created one for full name, and I'll say don't use that. But reports to, I've used a different name. I called it answers to. So you can change it. So till the time you point to the right field heading, this will work. I click Next. Now I can choose that the column fields from your data file that you want to display. I just want the full name and the position. If I wanted the department, I can add it. Next. And some more confirmation as to whether you want certain information, and I can click Next. And I don't have the picture. Next. And finish it. So there it is. I'm going to increase the zoom. And again, you see this executive assistant. She may not show up in the proper place, so I can click on it. Change position type. Change from position to assistant. Click OK. And then relayout. And you see now it's relayed it out. And again, you can just go on and set up and make any changes you like. So this is it for like an introduction, and maybe in the other videos I'll get into it more details, talking about certain specific examples. Thanks for watching.